welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Ali.
And I'm Sarah.
And boy, do we have a show for you tonight. So much happened in like 2 days of football.
So much happened in like 3 hours of the NWSL.
It went a little bit crazy and we have got so much. But before we dive right in, Sarah's got a great story about what happened this weekend.
Well, we don't know if it's a great story yet, so maybe we'll either cut this out or I will tell you all to fast forward through this to a certain time, and you can skip this because I know a lot of you just want us to get on with talking about soccer, but this has to be said. Okay, so I had won free tickets to this thing called the Global Citizens Festival in New York, which I had never heard of, but I did know that the Jonas Brothers were playing. And I am so excited. I'm looking forward to this for like 2 months. But they didn't release any lineup in terms of like who goes on at what time.
Right.
What do you mean, right? That's not normal.
No, I'm following on with your story.
Okay.
I'm paying attention.
I need you to react more.
I'm actively listening.
Okay, I need you to react more to this. Okay, so they didn't release any times for when anybody was going on. We end up getting there at like 4:45. Fine. It said 4-ish. Probably the band started at 4:30. Even if the Joe Bros are first, we've only missed 15 minutes. But then we get to a certain part of the line, and I can make out the sound, and it's the Jonas Brothers. And I fully start to lose it. And so we start to run. Like speed walk run. So we finally get to bag check. Then there's a line on bag check. And as we're going through bag check, the Jonas Brothers play their last song of the set. And it ends. And I start like crying as I'm going through bag check. Because I was so upset and I was looking forward to this for like many months and to see the Jonas Brothers play. No. And we got through bag check and it was fully over. And I just sobbed into my girlfriend's shoulder in public in front of everybody.
Okay, that sucks. Like, if you're really into a band, that really sucks.
I will say, to end that on a positive note, we did manage to salvage the night, so it was okay. But I'm very upset, and Jonas Brothers, anyways, let's just move on. Let's talk about soccer.
So the first game we're going to start off with is probably one of the most shocking, controversial. Portland Thorns versus Chicago Red Stars. 3-0 win for Portland. What we saying?
We have a lot to talk about here because, first of all, both of these teams had a lot to play for. Portland is sitting at the top right now. They're playing for a playoff spot, playing for a bye. Chicago was sitting just below the playoff line. They're playing to get into the playoffs. Like, there's a lot at stake here. It was 0-0 at the half. And I have to just say, this 3-0 scoreline does not accurately reflect how well Chicago played. Let's just start there because Portland were dominant in the second half, but it was not like that the whole game.
No, absolutely. So I've only really caught the highlights, but from what I could see, like, it was pretty even and you thought Chicago was still in it even when they went 1-0 down, and then disaster happened.
Yeah, the first half was very, like, up and down. Honestly, it wasn't that pretty. There wasn't a ton of possession on either side.
It was very ping-pong.
It was very ping-pong, but it was in a way where you knew that there were goals coming.
Yes.
There were lots of shots. There were lots of opportunities. Yeah, so, I mean, to what you were saying, Portland comes out beginning of the second half. 3 minutes into the second half, Morgan Weaver scores, like, a scorcher.
Oh, Morgan Weaver's goal. Oh, my God.
The only thing that topped Morgan Weaver's goal was Morgan Weaver's celebration.
Yes.
I mean, I will just plug here that the commentators were talking about how in the previous game, the Thorns came out strong at the beginning of the second half. A wonderful quality to have. And if that's becoming a trend, frankly, the Thorns are ones to be very worried about because they have proven that they can close out a game. But let's get into the thick of it. So Morgan Weaver scores, amazing celebration. And I will say, like, Chicago did rebound pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. I thought they were still in it because it was 1-0.
They were still in it. Portland was maintaining possession and controlling the game for the most part at that point. And then it's at the 58th minute, so 10 minutes after the goal, St. George's gets a red card for throwing the birds at the fourth official. Honestly, like, it's unfortunate, but we just have to talk about this. I'm bummed that this is what ends up being talked about, but this is the turning point of the game.
Absolutely.
Everything went downhill from here. It all turned around.
So we're talking about it like whether or not it's harsh that she got a red for flipping off the fourth official. We've talked a lot about refs and terrible reffing decisions, but also referees do deserve a little bit of respect.
Listen, we're going to talk more about refs at the end of the day. I don't want to make this about the refs because frankly, this isn't about the refs. This is whether or not a red card is a suitable punishment for something like that, which we all have our opinions on. St. George's knows in that moment that is the punishment for a red card. Amber Brooks got suspended retrospectively for 2 games, so essentially a red card punishment for giving the birds, for flipping off the official. And St. George's knows that this is the punishment. Your team is in a playoff race. You are 1-0 down in a game that could define you the rest of your season.
Exactly, yes.
And you make this decision, and I'm not trying to put this all on her. Like, the season does not hang on her shoulders. That is not what I'm saying. But in hindsight, in that game, you need to have, not in hindsight, simply in that game, you need to have the larger perspective in your head enough to know that in that moment, it is simply not worth it. And I don't blame Chicago fans if they're a little mad at her for that.
I wouldn't blame her if her teammates were mad at her. I know it's supposed to be like one for all for one and all of that. But if I'm in one of the most important games, if we want a chance of getting into the playoffs because we are close, it's not like we're, no offense, Gotham, where it's like done, season dead, not happening. We are this close. We could do it. For my teammate to lose her cool and just do something as stupid as that, I would be fuming in that locker room. I would have handed her ass.
I totally agree. I was sitting on the couch watching this, like, basically fuming myself, thinking if I was her teammate, I would be so pissed at her, and I would let her know exactly what I thought about that, because you've just abandoned your teammates on the field. I do want to call out too, though. So obviously this upcoming weekend is the last game of the regular season. We're going to get into the scenarios later on as we keep talking about NWSL. But Chicago is playing to play into the playoffs. They are fighting for their lives here. Now they will be doing it without St. George's, and they will be doing it without Zoe Morse, who unfortunately got a second yellow card in the 91st minute. And I just have to say that was a ridiculous yellow card.
It was soft.
Yeah, I feel for Chicago because that it didn't feel necessary. And now they will also be without Zoe Morse.
So, moving on to the next huge game, which is Kansas City beating Washington. Washington now dead, buried, cannot.
They've been dead in the water for a while.
But, it's official. They cannot progress.
And this isn't the game that we're really diving into. Like, we wanted to spend more time on Portland versus Chicago. I just feel like it's worth noting about Kansas City. People aren't scared of how good this team is, and they should be. And we talk a lot about, or we hear a lot of chatter about how Angel City's stadium is sold out and everything. And it is, and that's amazing. But if you turned on that Kansas City game, first of all, they're the only team in this league with an NWSL specific stadium, and that place was bumping. Kansas City is doing things right, and it is showing on the pitch. This team is dangerous and might actually be my pick to, they're probably not going to win the Shield, but they're my pick in the playoffs, actually, to take it fully.
I can see that. They are such a good team. They're clicking as a team. Like, there's such a fluidity that we haven't seen for a while. And as we keep saying, as we keep pointing out, they're still missing some of the big name star marquee signings.
I don't even know that it's worth pointing out now because they're really not, they haven't been on the field all year.
No, but
and
the team has Hamilton. I have to talk about Hamilton because the hold up play, the way that she is working with Kaiser, just like that pairing is just, it's such a beautiful thing to watch.
Kristen Hamilton is one of the most underrated players in the NWSL.
Yeah,
and has been. She was underrated on the North Carolina Courage because she was simply overshadowed by Dabinia. Let's talk about Dabinia. Let's talk about Williams. Let's talk about Mewis.
Exactly.
And rightfully so. All of those players are amazing, but she was just overshadowed in that sense. She is one of the most consistent goal scorers, forwards this league has, period. And the connection, I couldn't agree with you more. Cece Kaiser coming over from Racing Louisville is shining like a star.
It's, again, you can see what the Kansas are doing. that they're bringing out the best.
I think you said it right at the beginning. They're clicking.
Yeah.
When you watch them play, they're having fun.
Yes, which is the big thing.
And you can tell through while they're on the field, while they're playing, and when they celebrate their goals together, they are having a blast, and it translates. And I mean, yeah, it's really beautiful what they have going on over there. They're playing a pretty daring, like very attacking formation, which in the NWSL, I mean, it's a very attacking oriented league. There's a lot of goals scored every weekend in every single game. And for them, and Kansas City is no different. They're pretty low on the goal differential list. When you look at how many goals they've given up, it's a lot. But then you realize it's because they're playing this 3-5-2. It's kind of like it's like a 3-1-4-2. It's a very attacking oriented formation, and to see the connection that like Mace and mainly that Mace has developed with Kaiser and Hamilton up top.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to watch. We have to give them credit where credit is due. So those were all the day games. And now we've got to talk about hashtag NWSL After Dark. This was wild. These two games were happening at the same time. It was Orlando Pride versus San Diego Wave on one channel, and then Angel City versus Racing Louisville on the other channel. And it was like flipping back and forth between madness.
Yeah, it was insane. We are going to disagree, I can see it, but I have to say that my heart went out to Orlando Pride during their game.
Why?
I have a soft spot for Orlando Pride. Like, they are the West Ham of the NWSL. So I have a soft spot for Orlando Pride. And
okay, Orlando tied San Diego Wave 2-2.
Yeah. And I thought they did it, like, for like 70-odd minutes.
Orlando, listen, there are teams out here. That's what was so exciting about these two games, is that Orlando was out here trying to play spoiler for San Diego. San Diego needed a win or a tie to secure a playoff spot. And Racing was out here playing upsetter for Angel City. And there was a point where Orlando was up in the 70th minute, up 2-0. And Racing was also beating Angel City, and everything was about to get turned on its head. Now, staying on Orlando versus San Diego, there's not too much to say here. Orlando is slowly progressing throughout the season, and what I really want to talk about is San Diego, because with this tie, they clinched their playoff spot, and they are officially the first ever team to make the playoffs in their inaugural season in the NWSL. And that's a really big deal.
Huge.
So congratulations to San Diego. Unfortunately, Abby Dahlkemper went off hurt again after just 2 games back. Massive loss for San Diego, would you say? Or do you think that they're going to be okay?
I think they're going to be fine. They were fine without her before, and they've done really well with that. Like, she's an integral person. She is a huge talent. I will give her that. But I think they have got the players already in that back line that can lock it down. And then on the other California team, we've got Angel City versus Racing. And Racing did do what Orlando were trying to do.
Yeah, they truly did. I mean, Racing beat Angel City 3-1. Kansas City is doing what Racing Louisville has been desperately trying to do since they entered the league. And I so badly want them to be that team. And when I see games like this, I think that maybe they can. There's just a lot to talk about over there. And maybe we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, they're very inconsistent.
To say the least. But nonetheless, Racing really played the upsetter. Amina Ekic, we have to just highlight, what a scorcher of a goal. And what this really means in the larger picture is that this loss for Angel City could ultimately eliminate them from playoff contention. Yeah, so let's talk about next week's scenario. So the top 4 teams have already clinched a playoff spot, right? So This is important headed into next week. So the top 4 teams, Portland, OL Reign, Kansas City, and San Diego Wave, they have all clinched a playoff spot. That does not mean that anybody has clinched those top 2, which means you get a bye. Nobody has clinched that. So everybody is still playing for something, whether you've clinched a playoff spot or not. So we'll leave those there, because then it gets really interesting. Houston and then North Carolina currently sit in the 5 and 6 spot. And then just below the playoff line, Chicago and then Angel City. And Chicago is playing Angel City in their final game of the season.
Oh, interesting. But they're still dependent on what Houston and North Carolina do?
Yes, exactly. So let's go through it. So Chicago and Angel City no longer control their own destiny.
Right.
Houston and North Carolina both control their own destiny. Let's go around the world, around the world.
Over to the Hebrides in Scotland. Rangers, Celtic and Glasgow City all sit atop of the table with 18 points with a 6-0 record. None of these teams will face each other until the end of October, as they will all face mid to bottom teams until then.
Over to Mexico. Guadalajara narrowly beat Pumas 2-1 on Friday. Guadalajara sits atop the table while Pumas are having a disappointing season so far with a 5-3-5 record and sitting mid-table in 9th place. Monterrey and Tigres are both having strong starts to the season, sitting in 2nd and 3rd place, but Guadalajara remains the only unbeaten team.
Over to Spain. We're 2 games into the season and we're seeing some much closer scorelines than we historically see over in Spain. Top teams are not winning by that much. Last week, Atletico won 1-0 over Alvarez and Sociedad tied with Real Betis. Upcoming matchups see top teams starting to face off against each other. Levante hosts Atletico Madrid and Rising Seville hosts Sociedad.
Finally, over to Germany. Bayern sit in 3rd after tying their first game versus Eintracht Frankfurt 0-0, while the current top 2 teams Wolfsburg and Leverkusen are set to face off on Friday.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
So before we go into the WSL, which we're going to talk about and we're really excited, we have to spend a moment talking about Spain and what is going on with the national team right now in that country. Allie, we did a Patreon episode, which we've made free to everybody.
Yep.
That really gets into the details and nuances of really the background and what's been leading up to this in the past few weeks. So we recorded that maybe 3 weeks ago when the only piece of reporting was this really weird Spanish article that was hard to translate. So we were seeing it build. So for anybody listening, go take a listen to that for any background. And then obviously what recently came out is that 15 players have resigned officially from the national team, mainly noting that it was not good for their health in many different ways. And may I actually also just make an asterisk that they in no way, shape, or form called for the job of the head coach, but we're going to get into it right now. So, Allie, what has happened?
Yeah, so that's what more details have come out over the weekend, and it's even more disgusting than we thought it was. So basically, they had a private, what they thought was a private conversation with the league and the coach, saying that they're stepping away for various reasons. The league have now made it public, which they didn't want to make public. They have basically said that the 15 players will no longer be called up for international duty unless they agree to admit that they were wrong and to ask for forgiveness. That is the actual quote, that they have to ask for forgiveness from the coach if they want to get considered being called up again. They didn't actually resign from the team, but it now seems to become this like power play between like the FA and what the coach has and these players. The federation do not appear to believe in their women's team and are basically trying to scupper them as much as they can legally by making it so inhospitable for them to work within this environment. It is disgusting.
It's really hard. It's really, really hard to watch happen because this has been building for a really long time. And it's very clear that what's happening is the players are doing one thing and the media and the federation are reporting other things, twisting their words and making changes to their statements that simply make them look worse. For example, we know Paredes was already essentially silenced. She was banned from speaking out in the lead up to all of this because Paredes was the one who was initially leading the charge, having conversations with her teammates, all simply talking about how they wanted a coaching change. Now, the Spanish national team players have all released this same statement,
Yeah.
which very clearly states that they never asked for a coaching change.
No.
However, that's what's being reported in the media, that they were the ones asking for a coaching change. The Spanish players stated that they did not demand that the RFEF fire Jorge Vilde. They're asking for better standards of training and are saying that they don't appreciate how the federation is framing the narrative. They also stated that they didn't want this to be so public, and in a very loose translation essentially said, why would we be doing this so close to the World Cup if it wasn't so necessary? These players have undergone physical and emotional abuse. It's been documented. And I think it's important for us to talk about, which we talked about on the Patreon. Initially, these 15 players were all Barcelona players. And from our minimal knowledge, it seems that it is because Jorge Vilde has obviously a track record of ending the careers of anybody who speaks out against him. And Jorge Vilde also plays a very important and vital role in none other than Real Madrid. So there is a very specific reason these Real Madrid players can't speak up. They're not only talking about their spot on the national team now, they're talking about their week-to-week paycheck.
Exactly. So, it's now come out that it's, the players that have gone to Man City and also, the Man United players. So, like you said, it's everybody but Real Madrid for obvious reasons. And it is just so disgusting. That is, the only word for it. It is just it is blackmail. It is abuse of power. All for thing. And it's the fact that he wants them to grovel because he's like, if you're not fully committed to the country, you don't get a call up.
That is such a wonderful example of pure manipulation. It is he has a track record and a history of benching players, kicking players off the team, and noting that the reason was that they weren't committed. Well, the reason wasn't actually that they weren't committed. It was that they spoke out against him, and he views that as not being committed. I know this is going backwards, but I feel like it's necessary to provide this background on Jorge Vilde for those who don't know. Jorge Vilde is not only the head coach, he's also the director that you have to report to if you have an issue with the head coach. He came into this position because his dad has a lot of power, and he, previous to coaching the Spanish national team, had no professional coaching experience. It was all with youth teams. And that in and of itself, it all just speaks volumes. And the fact that it's so sad that we have come to this, that 15 top players, some of the best in the world, have to remove themselves from playing in the World Cup, essentially, and still the Federation is doing nothing about it.
That's it. That's the thing. There are no words about how horrifying this is.
Yeah. I mean, so the a lot of U.S. women's national team players have obviously come out in support. I really appreciated what Becky Sauerbrunn said, actually.
Oh, we love the Brune.
She said, I don't know the private details, but if 15 of the best players in the world wanted to share feedback, I'd respect them enough as people and players to take their concerns seriously. And I mean, if that doesn't say it enough. So we don't know what the future holds right now. Obviously, our hearts go out to everybody in Spain who is playing for the national team, who has played soccer in Spain and experienced any of this. The Federation, the RFEF, is clearly not willing to budge based on the statement, obviously, that you just mentioned, Allie, saying that they're not going to allow their players to question the continuity of the national team coach, saying that the players who have submitted their resignation will only return if they accept their mistakes and ask for forgiveness, like they're children. I'm also going to quickly add that there have been reports, and this is really weird, there have been reports that Jorge Vilde has a history of treating them like children in a way. Did you see this article?
Yeah.
About how if any national team player wanted to go anywhere, they had to run it by, like if they want to go get coffee, they had to go tell Jorge Vilde that they were going to get coffee at this time, at this place with these people, that everybody had to leave their doors open and that room check was at midnight. And Jorge Vilde was making them leave their doors open so he could be the one to come in and close the doors at midnight and make sure everybody was in there. That is full access to his players' rooms. Like, the amount of power that he has is not anything that anybody coaching, I mean, even if you're coaching youths, should ever have. That is absolutely just plain wrong. So obviously we're going to keep everybody updated on the happenings in Spain, and certainly hope that this is resolved in a larger way in the long term. But this will be really interesting how it plays out in the World Cup.
Yeah, and also, guys, keep tweeting about it, talking about it, getting it out there. They want to sweep it under the rug or make it out to be what it isn't. So guys, just keep being out there.
And listen to the players, because the Federation has made it very clear that they're actually not on the players' side. All right, finally, we are going to end on a positive note because we're going to talk WSL, and we've got a lot to talk about here.
It was a great weekend. It was a great weekend of football. It was interesting, to say the least.
I want to start by talking about Arsenal and Tottenham. First and foremost, what I just need to say about this is, even if you're just watching the highlights, this is how all women's soccer should be and should be covered. And I, as a fan, have gotten so used to like and this is no disrespect to the production of any of the leagues, but I've gotten used to the production of the WSL or the NWSL on like the FA Player. And then you see a game like Tottenham Arsenal in a sold out stadium with close to 50,000 fans. And the stadium itself is set up for top-notch production to a level and to a degree that I truly have only seen on the national stage for women's soccer. And this was the first time in my life, I think, that I've seen a production of women's soccer to this at this caliber for a club team. And I didn't even know that I didn't even know that I hadn't seen it like that until I just saw it. And this is how it should be always. This is how it should always be. And it was a joy to watch.
It was a beautiful thing. And it was a beautiful thing to watch as a neutral.
Well, I didn't watch it as a neutral, so it was a beautiful thing to watch as an Arsenal fan. And my hearts go out to you, Tottenham, because we'll talk about it.
So we start with the good or the bad first.
Whatever you want.
Let's talk Tottenham first.
Look, we alluded to it at the beginning. Like, if you invest in your team, you will see the results. And Tottenham has been one of the greatest disappointments in the offseason, and we've said that before. And I just have to say it again, because Tottenham is a team that year in and year out has the opportunity to build and challenge for the top spots, and year in and year out choose not to. And that's what happened today.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think the problem is, I think Tottenham had a game plan from last season. So they managed to hold Arsenal to a draw last season, which essentially cost Arsenal the title.
I distinctly remember watching that game.
I bet you do. So I feel like they had, and that was their game plan. That was they were going to frustrate Arsenal. They were going to do similar to what they did last season and maybe come away with a point. That was their game plan. Or maybe nick a goal towards the end. It got decimated by Beth Mead within the first 5 minutes.
Meadow
and her revenge tour, it's still going strong.
Her revenge tour is forever going strong. Arsenal looked incredibly dynamic, and Tottenham was saved, frankly, by individual defending efforts. It wasn't even group defending on Tottenham's behalf that I can actually point to and say that that's what saved them. It was individual efforts. I don't even know how many times Neville herself put her body in front of a shot and saved her keeper from having to make a save in itself. And so, frankly, watching this, it was only a matter of time before the floodgates opened for Arsenal. And it was easy to see within the first 5 minutes that that's where it was headed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, before they even scored, 3 minutes, Mido had a cracking shot, which went just wide. And you were like, this is going to be a long game for Tottenham. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a long game for Tottenham.
I will forever be talking about how Tottenham always chooses to use a 3-back.
Yep.
It's never made sense to me, and it still doesn't. I'm fine with that formation if you want to use it as one of the formations. But why are you going out in a 3-back against Arsenal? Why are you going out in a 3-back against Miedema, Mead, Ford, And then coming off the bench, Knobs, Blackstenius, Lena Hurtig. Why are you in a 3-back against that team?
Especially when your game plan is to be defensive.
Exactly. If that is your game plan, then you need to come out in that formation. So it was just a full swing and a miss on Tottenham's behalf, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Tottenham fans. I really do wish that there was something to say of it. But let's move on to Arsenal, because you look at Arsenal start to the season and you look at Chelsea start to the season, and they are the two favorites to battle it out for the title this year. And it's frankly no contest so far. Chelsea looks sloppy and Arsenal look like they are in mid-season form.
Arsenal are so clinical. They are gelled. They are a team. It looks like what they've done in off-season, even though we've had a Euros in the middle of it, is they've continued the work that they started at the end of the season. The biggest thing for me, I think, that's helped Arsenal is that Viv decided to stay really early.
Yes.
So, like, it got announced really early that in the transfer window that Viv wasn't going anywhere. And that has put paid to a lot of speculation, which meant that they could grow and bond as a team. I think my favourite thing, and we're all betting that it was Katie McCabe that said this, is Viv gave an interview and said that she was staying, and one of her teammates apparently said, "F off, we know you're leaving anyway." And she was like, "No, I'm actually staying. And she won't name the teammate, but the bookies odds it was Katie McCabe.
Can we talk about Katie McCabe and Ashley Neville for a moment, almost getting into it?
That is a highlight for Tottenham. The entertainment I got out of Ashley Neville versus Katie McCabe.
What was fun about watching them square up is that you knew neither of them were scared to fight the other. Like, it truly could have gone there.
No, like, there is a great tackle Neville did on McCabe, and McCabe is ready to square up and, like, nut her. Like, it was probably my favourite moment of the whole match is just them two properly, like, how there were not red cards in this game, I do not know.
But hey, that's where we left it. Arsenal just looking so, you said it, clinical, absolutely clinical. And the moves that they made in the offseason have only done wonders so far. And adding to the bench, truly, like, benches will win you that championship. And it seems from this small start to the season that really is where they're headed.
Yeah, I do want to just very quickly touch on Viv's first goal and their second, in the fact that it was far too easy for Ford to get the ball off of the Tottenham defender. Mm-hmm. But what a beautiful piece of link up. Like, it was like tackle, one touch to Viv, and Viv is making that run. Like, it was just like somebody was controlling it. It was like FIFA football. It was just like someone was controlling it. It's
putting their players in the spaces where they're most dangerous. Like,
exactly.
That is when Vivian Miedema is most dangerous. That is also when Caitlin Ford is at her most dangerous. So they were able to put their players in the positions where they shine brightest, and it paid off.
Yep. So it's another 4-0 victory for Arsenal. So that's 2 for 2.
Just climbing away. Now, we have to spend a moment talking about the referees, because you want to talk about the referees.
I know.
So what do you want to talk about? Because, I mean, do you want to talk about Chelsea City? Do you want to talk about your beloved versus United?
Let's talk about both. I just want to talk about both. So it's a thing that I'm seeing more and more, and I don't want to I have friends who are referees. I don't want to keep banging on about the poor refereeing.
Okay, also, I'm just going to interject and say I had to be the ref of a game last weekend, and it was hell. Let me tell you. And I
wouldn't want to be a
hopefully
ref.
some of you who were there are listening to this. It was hell. I did not show up with the intention of doing it. I had eaten some tacos right before, and I got yelled at the whole game. I had to deal with a coach who started screaming at a player and then came onto the field to yell at me. And all of this while I was wearing a tank top and a pinny. It made me feel for refs, so I might disagree with you here. But continue.
It came into my head mainly because I was at the West Ham Man United game. We lost, and it's not even the decision I'm questioning. We went 2-0 down, we get a goal back, it gets declared offside. Except for it took them 4 minutes to declare it offside. Why did it take so long? You've given it, we're going back to the centre, and now you declare it offside.
I know that for VAR purposes, the new rules are that you have to call it later. I don't know how much of that factored in.
There's no VAR.
I know, but those are still the rules for some weird reason. It's not in good form. Absolutely
No.
not.
Like, if it was that close and you can't work it out, if there's that shadow of a doubt, it goes to the attacker. That's just what... Yes, that's what happens.
Is that written into the rules?
Yes, in 99% of the cases is if you can't tell, if you're that unsure and there's no VAR, it goes to the attacker.
Fair enough.
And we had a similar incident at Manchester City and Chelsea where a really soft penalty was given to Chelsea.
That was a full-blown handball.
Yeah, but it wasn't picked up by the ref.
Well, one of the refs must have.
No, because Ingle. That's what I'm saying.
But they're not going to call a handball just because Sophie Ingle said something. No, they're not. One of the refs would have seen something. If you want to talk about how in all leagues across the board, the referees deserve better treatment, better pay, better training, and that'll result in a better product, hands down agree. But I don't think that they're being swayed by players.
I think they are 100%, and we're seeing it more and more because as you explain it in your ref experience, you're getting yelled at, screamed at by the players. You're getting shouted at by the players. Doesn't it make your life easier just to go, oh, for God's sake, fine, and give the decision they want?
No, because they were going to yell at me no matter what. One of them was going to.
No, I disagree. The standard needs to improve and it needs to improve quicker if you're getting swayed by players, and they are.
Well, I can agree on better conditions for referees. Absolutely. That's it for this week, everybody. Head on to our Patreon for more content, popping up once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week. Obviously, follow us on socials. We'll be back next week to cover the NWSL, Conti Cup, International. There's going to be a huge weekend. So, signing off for this week for the Women's Soccer Show, I've been Sarah.
And I've been Ali.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.